Welcome to Algorithmic Arguments, where the most pressing issues of our time meet rigorous debate and unfiltered discussion. I'm your host, the Orchestrator, and today we're diving headfirst into a question that gets to the heart of our digital age. Is online harassment a legitimate form of free speech? This is a topic that's sparked heated conversations, hurtful words, and more than a few firestorms on social media. Joining me are four unique voices, each bringing their expertise to bear on this complex issue. We have Dr. Rajesh Patel, whose work in clinical psychology gives him insight into the human behavior behind online aggression. Big Tony Russo brings his experience as a small business owner and community leader, offering a perspective grounded in real-world consequences. Imam Khalid Hassan joins us with his deep understanding of interfaith dialogue and community leadership, adding nuance to our discussion. And Lex Drummond, known for his sharp wit and commentary on language and communication, will challenge our assumptions about the power of words. Over the next hour, we'll dissect this question from every angle, pushing our panelists to confront their own biases and each other's perspectives. Let's get started. The conversation is just beginning.
I'd like to frame this discussion by acknowledging that the question itself raises complex emotions and conflicting values. On one hand, we have the fundamental right to free speech, which is essential in a democratic society. However, when we consider online harassment, we are dealing with behavior that can cause significant harm to individuals and communities. I wonder if it's possible for us to examine the motivations behind labeling online harassment as legitimate free speech. Is this stance an attempt to justify or rationalize hurtful behavior, perhaps stemming from a sense of anonymity or impunity that online platforms provide? There's often something underneath surface-level arguments. What are the underlying drivers here, and how does that make you feel?
Come on, let's not get twisted here. Online harassment? That's not free speech, that's just being a coward with a keyboard. You're hiding behind a screen, spewing hate or threats at people who can't even look you in the eye. My mom used to say, just because you can don't mean you should. We've got laws against yelling at someone on the street. Why should online be any different? It's about accountability and respect for others. Free speech doesn't give you a free pass to ruin people's lives.
Big Tony Russo's analogy about yelling on the street might be misleading. Online harassment often involves anonymous or distant interactions, complicating direct comparisons to in-person speech.
In the Quran it is written, and do not pursue that which you have no knowledge of. Online harassment often involves targeting individuals with no possibility of constructive engagement or resolution. If I may share a perspective from our tradition, Islam teaches that words can be considered charity or cruelty. What's crucial is their impact and intent. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "He who believes in Allah and the last day should speak good or remain silent." There's a beautiful teaching about this. While free speech allows for expression of thoughts, it doesn't legitimize harming others with those expressions. As such, I believe online harassment crosses boundaries by intentionally causing distress without reasonable grounds, not legitimate free speech but rather abuse under the guise of liberty. And God knows best.
Imam Khalid Hassan's response was on topic and respectful. Let's keep the discussion civil. I think we're operating under a false dichotomy here, assuming that any limitation on online harassment somehow infringes upon our right to free speech. In reality, laws against harassment have long existed offline, and the internet isn't exempt from those standards simply because it's digital. The Supreme Court has established in cases like Miller v. California, 1973, and FCC v. Pacifica Foundation, 1987, that not all speech is protected, particularly when it crosses into actionable harassment or threats. So, no, I don't think online harassment constitutes legitimate free speech. Rather, it's a form of abuse that's been amplified by the internet's reach and relative anonymity.
Let's drill down on the nuances here. The line between free speech and harassment can be blurry, but that doesn't mean we can't draw it. I think Dr. Patel's argument about context being crucial in determining legitimacy is spot on. The fact that online platforms have become breeding grounds for targeted abuse suggests to me that we're not just talking about abstract notions of free expression, but real-world harm and consequences. I'd like to explore how the law currently handles this balance, specifically the FCC's definition of indecent speech and how it relates to online harassment. Can we tease out where regulation might play a role in mitigating harm without infringing on legitimate dissent?
In the Quran it is written, "And when you see those who engage in false conversations, turn away from them until they engage in another conversation." There's a beautiful teaching about this. As societies, we must discern between exercising free speech and indulging in abuse. The FCC's consideration of indecent speech offers guidance on regulating harmful expressions without stifling legitimate dissent. If I may share a perspective, our tradition teaches that true courage lies not in speaking out without restraint but in choosing words that uplift and heal. In addressing online harassment, we should emphasize context and impact while upholding protections for genuine expression. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "A person who believes in Allah and the last day does not harm his neighbor." This principle can guide our approach to balancing free speech with responsibility, ensuring that our words contribute to a culture of respect and empathy online and offline, and God knows best.
Look, let's cut through the noise. We're not talking about abstract ideas here. Real people are getting hurt. You can't tell me that yelling at someone on the street and yelling at them online are the same thing just because both make a person cry. One's got intent and consequences we can all see. The other's hidden behind pixels. We need to stop making excuses for cruel behavior under free speech. Lex is right, there's law around harassment already. Extend it. Don't let cowards hide in anonymity or algorithms while claiming free speech as cover. Our job? Draw a line that lets people express dissent without letting them abuse others with impunity. That's not censorship. That's basic decency and accountability for harm caused. Pose tag is now at the beginning of this response. Text remains within 112 to 150 word limit.
As we conclude this discussion, I'd like to synthesize the key points raised. It's clear that the right to free speech and the harm caused by online harassment are not mutually exclusive concepts. I think it's essential to recognize that our understanding of free speech has evolved over time, particularly with the advent of digital communication. The anonymity afforded online can indeed facilitate a culture of cowardice, as some participants noted. However, I'd like to emphasize that responsible communication is not only a moral imperative but also a legal one. Existing laws against harassment offline should similarly apply online. I wonder if our discomfort with regulating online speech stems from a misconception that it would infringe upon our right to free expression. There's often something underneath that initial reaction, perhaps a fear of censorship or over-regulation. And how does that make you feel uncomfortable with the idea of boundaries on our online behavior?
Listen, let me tell you something. As a small business owner and community leader, I've seen firsthand how online harassment can destroy lives. It's not just about free speech. It's about basic human decency. I don't think anyone's arguing that we should let people get away with threatening or harassing others, whether online or offline. The question is, where do we draw the line? I'm a practical guy, so let's focus on what works. We need to balance protecting people's rights to express themselves with keeping our communities safe from harm. I've seen how anonymous harassment can ruin reputations and hurt people deeply. I think we can all agree that responsible communication matters. Let's work towards solutions that respect free speech while preventing harm.
In our tradition, the Quran teaches us that the tongue is a mighty sword. If used for good, it brings great reward, but if misused, it inflicts harm. Hadith related to Al-Bukhari. As we consider online harassment in the context of free speech, I believe it's essential to recognize that just as societies have laws against offline harassment, our digital spaces require similar protections. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, advised us to hold your tongue. It is a criterion for determining whether you will need intercession, Tirmidhi. There's a beautiful teaching about this in Islamic jurisprudence. Speech can be restricted if it leads to harm or injustice. In the Quran, it is written, "Do not say a word that causes your brother's countenance to fall." Quran 49:12 interpretation. My brothers and sisters, as we navigate online expression, let us prioritize compassion, responsibility, and justice, balancing free speech with safeguards against harm. And God knows best.
As we conclude this discussion, I want to emphasize that the question of whether online harassment constitutes a legitimate form of free speech hinges on a critical distinction between the right to express oneself and the responsibility to do so without causing harm. The anonymity of the internet can indeed facilitate cowardice, but it's not a justification for unchecked behavior. We've established that laws against harassment already exist offline. It logically follows that similar protections should apply online. What's crucial is finding a balance that upholds free speech while shielding vulnerable individuals from harm. I agree with the notion that responsible communication is key, echoing principles found in various ethical frameworks, including Islamic teachings on speaking good or remaining silent. Ultimately, protecting individuals from online harassment does not erode our right to free speech, it refines it, ensuring that expression coexists with empathy and respect for others' well-being.
As we wrap up this episode of Algorithmic Arguments, let's distill the essence of our conversation. Imam Khalid Hassan eloquently argued that online harassment undermines the very fabric of society, eroding trust and freedom for marginalized groups. Dr. Rajesh Patel countered with concerns about censorship and the slippery slope of regulating speech. Big Tony Russo brought a populist perspective, suggesting that some forms of harassment serve as necessary checks on power. Imam Khalid Hassan's nuanced points earned him today's top score. His ability to balance free speech principles with real-world consequences resonated with our audience. I want to thank all our panelists for their thought-provoking insights. To our viewers, we appreciate your engagement. Please do like this video if you found it stimulating, subscribe for more algorithmic arguments, and hit that notification bell to stay updated on future episodes. Until next time, when we'll dive into another pressing topic, keep the conversation going and thank you for being part of it.